Let me show you a secret I learned years ago that solves a big problem. Have a look at this. Do you see it? Not yet? This could be a box, or it might be a drawer, or if it was bigger, it could be a cabinet like you have in your kitchen. It's made with 4 sides and with a bottom panel. Notice how they all lock together. Now do you see it? Not yet? Okay, let me give you a little more information. The way the corners go together is called a locking rabbet joint, or some folks might call it a tongue and dado joint, or even just a drawer joint. Whatever you call it, it's designed to self-align. So imagine you're assembling a much bigger cabinet than this, and you're trying to get all the clamps in place without everything sliding out of alignment at your corners because glue is slippery. The locking nature of these corners eliminate that problem and make project assembly a breeze. In fact, this one's holding together and it's not even glued. And in the case of a drawer, this type of locking joint also adds a mechanical component that prevents the front from being pulled off over time as people yank the drawer open. It's almost as strong as dovetails, but it's way easier to make. But that's not the secret I'm getting at. Have you figured it out yet? No? Okay, well look at the bottom. Or if this were a cabinet, this would be the back panel. It slips into a neat little groove. Now, creating that groove is actually trickier than it looks. Because normally, when you cut a groove into 4 sides like this, you'll end up having a visible hole on the outside of the box, and you'll have to try to plug it or otherwise hide that opening. But what if you can make those disappear, or better yet, never exist at all? What if you could make cabinets, boxes, or drawers of all sizes with fixed panels like this, but without difficult stop cuts, no complicated setups, just quick and easy? That's the secret I'm going to show you in this video. I call it the mysterious hidden groove joint. And once you see how easy this is to make, you're never going to make a drawer, a box, or a cabinet the same way again. I will do this at my table saw with a dado set, but many of our viewers don't have access to dado sets. So today I'm going to show you how to do this with a router table and just a 1/4 inch straight bit. I'll start by attaching a scrap of wood to my router fence to create an auxiliary face. You'll see why shortly. Notice how I placed it about 1/8 of an inch above the top of the table. This just gives the sawdust somewhere to go so it won't build up. I'm raising the bit 1/2 inch above the table. This assumes that your material is 3/4 of an inch thick, like mine. If you're making like a drawer with 1/2 inch stock, then you'll raise your bit 3/8 of an inch instead of 3/4. For the sake of this tutorial, let's say we're making a drawer. We'll call these the drawer sides, and we'll call these the front and back. I'm setting my fence so the cutter is flush with the outer face of one of my front or back pieces. Then I'll use these settings to cut dados across both ends of each of my side pieces. Because these sides are narrow, I'm using a scrap of wood and a push block to keep my work pieces perpendicular to the fence as I work. Next, I'll reduce the bit's height to 1/4 inch above the table. Again, that's for 3/4 inch thick stock. If this were 1/2 inch material, then I'd change my bit height to 1/8 of an inch above the table instead of 1/4. At this setting, it'll take a couple passes to nibble away the material between the dado and the ends of the side pieces. Notice how I'm using my pusher to guide that piece and keep it perpendicular as I move the end away from the fence to clear away any remaining waste. That completes half the locking rabbet joint. To create the other half, move the fence forward until the back of your router bit barely skims its surface. This is why I clamped on that auxiliary fence face. It ensures my good fence isn't damaged by the bit. Now I'm working with the front and back pieces of my drawer assembly, or I suppose if this was a cabinet, these would be the top and bottom panels. I'm cutting a rabbet on both ends of each workpiece. The first one is going to take more than a single pass because I'm going to raise my bit a little bit at a time, removing more material gradually until the tongue that remains is just thick enough to slip into the dado on the end of its mating workpiece. When that height is dialed in, I can cut my tongues on each end of all of my top and bottom pieces. That's the locking rabbet joint I was talking about. Easy peasy, right? Now let's cut the hidden grooves for our panels to slip into. Raise the bit no higher than the thickness of the tongue you just created. That should be about 1/4 inch for 3/4 inch stock, or 1/8 of an inch for 1/2 inch thick stock. I'm going to move the fence back about a 1/4 inch from the bit. Now I'll use these settings to cut grooves along the edges of all my work pieces. Now notice the orientation of the pieces that I'm showing you here. It's important to cut your grooves on the right faces, and it's different depending on whether it's a side piece or a front, back, top, bottom piece. Congratulations, you just made your first drawer. Now a lot of times you'll put a faux front on this so you don't see the end grain. And as you can see, there are no grooves visible from the outside, which would be especially important if this were a cabinet. Not bad for a single router bit and just a couple of fence settings, right? And don't forget, the same process can not only make sturdy drawers, but full-size kitchen cabinets and other boxes that are easy to assemble and super strong. Now here's another short lesson on something else that's going to change how you work. 3M says their Cubitron 2 sandpaper is a revolutionary advancement in abrasive technology. What makes Cubitron paper different is the grit is made up of ceramic pyramids, which slice the fibers of the wood rather than plowing troughs through them like the grain of the tiny rocks that are found on other sandpaper. The result is an abrasive that works faster and stays cooler, so it lasts longer, significantly longer, like 5 or 6 times longer than the cheap stuff, and about twice as long as even other premium sandpapers. 3M Cubitron 2 destroyed Mirka, Klingspor, all the brands that are generally considered to be really good stuff. The Cubitron genuinely lasts a lot longer. I assume it must keep it cooler, perhaps it optimizes the way it cuts. I honestly don't understand how it works. It just works better than any other sandpaper I've used. All I can say is try it. Just 1 pack. You'll see what I mean. And if you do, please use the link below this video, which is to a small family business, and that business is well worth supporting.